This is ProBlogger.
My name is Darren Rouse and I'm the blogger behind ProBlogger.com, a blog, podcast, event, job board and a series of ebooks all designed to help you as a blogger to start a blog, to grow the audience to your blog, to create content that's going to change that audience's life in some way and to hopefully make a profit from your blog as well. You can learn more about ProBlogger at ProBlogger.com. Now in today's lesson I want to talk about tools that you can use to create great visual content for your blog and for your social media. Over the last few weeks and episodes of this podcast, we've been exploring different types of content that you can use on your blog. In episode 187, we talked about written content, perhaps the most obvious type of content for a blog. In 189, I talked about video content and had a great interview with Justin Brown on how to create great video content. And then even back in episode 180, we talked about live video and how to create live video, particularly for Facebook. Now, each of these types of content are really important to be able to create for your blog today. But one that's increasingly important today is visual content, and it can actually be used in a lot of the other types of content as well. You know, I looked back the other day at my first blog, some screenshots of it from 2002, and I was amazed at how boring it looked. Not a single post on the front page of that blog in 2002 had even an image in it. It was purely text. Now, of course, today the web is so much more visual as a place. I personally can't remember the last time I published a blog post without at least one image in it or one chart or one piece of visual content in it. Most people today are at least including an image, a good image. But there's so many other types of content that we can create, visual types of content as well. Visual content really does help your blog, your content to stand out from the crowd. It can differentiate you from all of those other millions of pieces of content out there. It gives your content personality. It helps it to become more useful. It makes it easier to read, and it also increases the chance of your content being shared, because studies have proved again and again that when you have content with visuals, it gets shared at a much higher rate. Now, the great thing is today that we operate in a times where it's so easy to create visual content. There are so many great ways to do it. There's so many amazing tools and services available to us, many of them free. The problem, though, is that there's so many tools that can be quite overwhelming to know which one to use. And so in today's episode, that's what I want to explore. I want to suggest to you some tools that you can use to create visual content. In fact, it's not going to be me who will be suggesting them. It's an expert in this field, Peg Fitzpatrick, who I've heard speak many times at conferences on this particular topic. And so as I was pondering how do I explore this topic, Peg was an obvious choice. And she's going to suggest to you some great tools that you can use for creating visual content, designing visual content, some great sources for free stock photos. She's going to suggest to you a tool that will help you in the sharing of your visual content, particularly if you're a WordPress user. And she's also going to share with you her favorite tool for organizing the visual content that you create. So today's episode is going to be well worth listening if you are at the beginning of this journey creating visual content, or you want to find the latest tools, because some of these tools are newish tools as well. As I mentioned before, a lot of these tools are free, or at least have free versions, and I will list them all on today's show notes. So you might want to open that up as we get into this episode. You can find the show notes over at ProBlogger.com/podcast/191. And I'd also love it if you would join our Facebook group. If you just go to ProBlogger.com/group, or do a search for the ProBlogger community in Facebook. And I'd love it if you would tell us what your favorite visual tool is as well, because there's lots of others out there, and I'm sure there's others that we haven't covered in this particular episode as well. So head over to the group after you've listened as well and share with us what your favorite tool is too. Again, the show notes are at ProBlogger.com/podcast/191, where I've listed all of the tools that we cover today, as well as some other further reading and listening. Thanks for listening, and I'm going to get into this interview that I did with Peg Fitzpatrick, and also you can check out Peg's blog over at pegfitzpatrick.com.
Creating great content, finding an audience, building engagement. monetizing your blog. This is Pro Blogger.
So, Peg, in recent episodes, we've been looking at different types of content that can be featured on blogs, and we talked about written content, which is obviously a big feature for me, and video content, and even how to do live video. But today I want to talk about another really important type of content, which I think you've got a lot to say about, and that's visual content. I know I've heard you speak about this at many conferences, so you are kind of a bit of a no-brainer in terms of getting someone on to talk about it. So I want to welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, it's I'm surprised I actually haven't had you on already. So it's kind of
me too.
Overdue.
What's up with that, Darren?
I know.
Come on.
I know. I actually don't do too many interviews, so it's a bit of a new thing for me to do interviews. So bear with me while I you're my guinea pig. So one of the things we talked about in the last few episodes is the superpowers of different types of content. I think I talked about written content being really good for being found in search, being scannable. I had Justin Brown recently on to talk about video, and he talked about how it's really great for showing your personality and getting shares. I wonder if you can tell us what you think visual content's superpower is.
Well, it's basically this superpower is helping all of your other content be seen, because where blogs used to be just all about, the best ideas and the newest ideas. And now, as you know, I mean, I don't even know how many, are there a billion blogs now? Because I know it was like millions starting every day. So I don't know how many there are in the world, but there's a lot of written word out there now. And the visuals on your blog are what help more people. Number one, they stay to read it longer, because when people see a big, long wall of text, people have such short attention spans. And I'm really shocked. Have you ever asked your readers how many people read your blog on their phone?
Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it?
Isn't it? Like,
yeah.
I was always like, who reads a whole blog post on their phone? But lots of people love it. And you need something to break the text up, the big pieces of text, because people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter because everybody's bombarded with so much information. And we're used to seeing, shiny things around the internet. So thankfully the flash sites with the music are gone.
Yeah.
But the ones where you roll up and they'd like play a little song for you. Remember those days?
I do.
I probably dated myself with that one, but we were all there. So now when people go to a blog post, they like to see visuals, and it's not only just for like looking at a blog post, but it's also for shareability, because people want to hit a social sharing button. And honestly, I'm shocked when I go to people's blogs and they have no social sharing buttons. There's so many people that have no social sharing buttons still.
Yeah. And
then they're like, I don't get any social shares. Why is that? I'm like, well, number one, you could add some buttons that people could hit them, and they're like, oh, like I realize that when people are new, it is hard. There's so much to learn when you're a new blogger, but you can definitely Google those things, like 10 things I need when I start a blog on my blog, and you can get the basics. So make sure you have the basics in place, which are your social sharing buttons, but also images. So when people hit the share button, a great image goes with it. If you go to hit a social sharing button to Facebook and it's text only, a lot of people won't share that.
And if they do, it doesn't work. Like it is not going to get the attention of that person as well. So
absolutely, it will go nowhere in the newsfeed. I think occasionally people can do a text only post on Facebook and it does okay. But even Facebook, they added that feature where you could like change your text only post into making it into a graphic, which I actually dislike that feature on Facebook. But I think Facebook is even recognizing that sometimes people just have text. But you don't want that to be your blog post. You don't want something bad to go out with your blog post. So there's a lot of different ways that I look at it. Like number one, you want it to look nice when people go. So they go to the Pro Blogger site. They're going to see this great image that reminds them of other visuals that they've seen around. And then when they hit the share button, you want that to share, but with the right size. That's the tricky piece, because one image doesn't fit on every social site. They all have different parameters. So the thing is you don't also want like a weird size photo to go out because then that doesn't look good either. So I do have a tool for that if we want to get into
Ah.
it right away.
Well, let's
This is
talk. Let's talk about different
okay.
types of visual content, and then
Later.
we'll get into
Okay.
the tools because I
Later.
know
Okay.
people
It
are
does
hanging
go
for
with
the
this.
tools.
So
Yeah,
wait for it, people. It's coming.
it's coming. Well, I like to tease. I like to tease.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
before we get into the tools, I'd love to just hear your thoughts on the different types of visual content that a blogger can use on their blog. Because one of the things I love about your blog, and I use your blog as a case study when I speak, is that you have so much variety in the visual content that's on your blog. And every time I look at a blog post, there's at least one or two pieces. And so I suspect you've got a policy that no content goes out without visual. Is that to
Yeah.
be the
I
case?
have all my blog posts have visuals.
And
Definitely.
that's
For
what we
sure.
do as well. We always have to
Yeah.
have one. But what I love about yours is there's a lot of variety in that, and every blog post has at least one, and they're all kinds of different types of visuals. So I wonder if you could talk about some of the different types of visuals that bloggers can use on their blogs.
Absolutely. And thank you for looking at my blog and using it as a case study. I'm always so flattered when I was like, oh, thank you for reading my blog, someone. um, so I use, honestly, sometimes it depends on what type of post it is. So say, for example, like after we were at Social Media Marketing World and I was going to share one of my presentations, I would upload that to SlideShare. I would upload the presentation. So sometimes it depends. Some speakers don't like to give away everything if they do the same presentation everywhere. They don't want to give away their whole presentation. But you could do like a shorter version, maybe just the intro with like maybe just the tools that you shared, because that's what people want to see afterwards. Like they see so many people speak and they might forget. So I'll load it up to SlideShare. So then that SlideShare content, then I can embed that into my blog post and then I can write some text with it. Because like you speak at different conferences too, and I'm sure people like if you share something, people ask a lot, like, can I see your presentation? And they don't get the whole thing, but I give people part of it so they can get some piece of it so they feel like they were there. Maybe they hear like some new stats or some new tools or something that I shared. So that's one thing that I'll do is share slide shares. I embed videos. So I will upload a YouTube video and then I will embed that into a blog post also. I love doing social images. Instagram images are awesome because you can legally use the images when you're embedding a social post, like a Facebook post or an Instagram post. It's not taking someone else's image without permission because it actually embeds their post and it keeps their name at the top and their comments and their social shares. So if you see an Instagram post that you like and you want to use it in a blog post, you can't just cut and paste their picture. That's not okay. You can get a DCMA takedown notice for that because it's somebody else's intellectual property. But you can embed their social post, and if it's a public Instagram post, then it will embed, and then you can share that image. So if you were writing a blog post about you have a lot of photographers that follow you. So say you were, doing a study on like 10 Instagram accounts that post like great landscape photos. You could embed the photos in there. So you could talk a little bit about it. You could say like, look at they go out at different times of day. They use different lenses. You could have the different techniques that they use in there to get the different types of photos. And you could use their photos by embedding their posts. And then it also gets more engagement back to their post.
Mm. And it's a win for them as well as you, in that it's getting people back to you. And this is I guess the big thing I want to get across to our listeners is that whilst what we're going to talk a lot about today is tools that you can use to create great visuals, that you don't have to create all the visuals. There's so much visual content out there that you can be embedding legally onto your blog. And we talked a lot about that in episode 97 about embeddable content. But I really encourage listeners to go and have a look at Peg's blog to see this in action, because every post almost has something embedded, whether it's a Twitter.
I know it. I do.
Yeah.
I also do tweets. I like to do the click to tweets because those are super popular. And like for you, you do a blog, you do a podcast. So if you say something or if you have a guest on that says like something that's nice, short, little tweetable, you can make that into a tweet. So you can have it shows as a quote in your blog post, and then people can click to tweet, and then it goes out on Twitter, and it actually adds a link back to your podcast.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
So that's a win-win too.
You're listening to Pro Blogger.
Okay, let's get into some tools. And I guess let's start with tools that you can use to help create graphic content or that sounded a bit rude, graphic content, graphics for you, but visual content.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so visual content. Yes. So one of my very favorites, and I have worked with them as a brand ambassador, is Adobe Spark. Have you tried Adobe Spark yet?
I've tried it a little bit. I think I tried it right in the early days, and since then I've heard it's developed a lot. So talk to us about it.
Actually, they have 3 different tools in that. One is called Adobe Post. One is Page, and one is where you can make landing pages. And then they have Spark Video. And I'm not great with video. So here's the big secret with all my great visual content. I actually can't use Photoshop, and I can't edit video. So I am like most people, where I don't have like the super high-tech skills, where I think a lot of people feel like, well, I can't make great graphics because I don't know how to use Photoshop and I don't know how to edit video. And I don't either. So I taught myself how to use other things that look professional. So I test things. In Adobe Spark, what I love about it is everything looks crisp and professional no matter where you put it. Like there's a tool that a lot of people use, and I don't like to say bad things about tools, but when you would do the photos, like you'd put it in your Facebook cover and the text would be blurry. And it was very unprofessional. I think it had to do actually kind of with Facebook, whatever they did to the photos. But Adobe Spark, everything looks 100% professional. When you drag when you add the text in, they have little dragging tools where you can just move it without having to realign your text. Everything stays aligned perfectly, and you can center it. It has the little grid lines. So it's just easy to use, and they do right in the app have free photos that you can use, that you can legally use. So it makes it kind of one-stop shopping.
Okay. So Adobe Post is something that you can use on your phone, but it's also desktop, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I like about that is I like to make my stuff usually on the computer. And then if I need to, I'll bring it over to my phone. Like if it's something for Instagram, sometimes I'll make it on the computer and then bring it over to my phone to share it. And then when you're on the phone, you can make animations. So if you wanted to make something that had some motion to it with a text or something, you can do that on your phone, but not on desktop.
Right. Well, very cool. So you're using this mainly for sort of text overlay type stuff?
Yeah, I use it for text overlay stuff. I've actually even made slides for presentations in it. You can use it for all different kinds of things. I use it a lot to do my Instagram stories because they have a little Instagram story size in there, and then you can animate them and put stickers and stuff on them. So it's super fun. So yeah, I use that for my blog post graphics. I use it for social graphics. I use it for all different kinds of graphics, presentation stuff sometimes. It doesn't have a multi-page feature, so it's not as ideal for presentations, but for my blog graphics, I love it. And it has a feature where you can, if you make one that ends up being really popular, I kind of like to pre-test my social stuff. So when an image, just like your blog content, if it's popular, then you reproduce that template. Okay, that blog post works. So if you have a graphic that's really popular, you can just hit a duplicate button and it makes a template from it. And then you can just, rearrange the photo, and it makes it nice so you're not recreating the wheel every time.
Yeah, that's great, and that would help with consistency between your images as well. Is there any cost associated with Adobe Spark?
It's 100% free right now.
Wow.
Everything is free in it. So it's free. The images are free. Everything is free in it right now.
Isn't it amazing? This world we live in, the things that were at our fingertips.
I know.
Yeah.
Right. And if you are an Adobe Photoshop user, it's actually part of the Creative Cloud. So it will tie all your things together. Actually, you can pull your Lightroom photos in there.
Wow. Very powerful.
It's connected to everything Adobe.
Excellent. I'm going to learn how to use this a bit better, I think.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
It really is. Can you
Yeah.
use Lightroom? You're like a Lightroom user,
Yeah,
right?
I'm a big Lightroom user, so I think that would be pretty cool to be able to pull in my own photos and sync between them. That'd be great. I actually did create a video with it, the video part of it, and I think I created a video that used the audio from this podcast, and then I put some images over the top of it, and I thought that was interesting because it allowed me to share that onto Facebook as a way to create some moving images with the audio, just as a teaser for the podcast. I think I did a couple of those in previous days. So yeah, lots of potential there.
They've updated a lot in the video section too. You can actually embed a video in the video now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it's all like drag and drop, like so easy. Even I can use it.
Oh, I know. And if I could do it, anyone can. So that's great.
It's true. It's not complicated at all. So it's really just kind of coming up with the ideas for your blog post. Like, what type of blog post is this one? Is it a podcast, or is it a tutorial? Is it a how-to? Like, because some of the other blog posts I write are how-to blog posts, and then in those I have examples, like where I'm adding, Canva is another tool I use. It's a down under company, and they have like I'll put stuff in there. Like I'll do a screenshot, and then you can put like circles around stuff or arrows pointing to things or text overlays, not to do like a blog title, but to say like, just to point out something when you're showing something new, when you're explaining something. So you can do the steps, like you can do step 1, step 2, step 3. And that's easy to do in Canva because they have a multi-page feature. So you could put the screenshot in and then add the different layers in there. And that's also easy. Canva they have a free version, and then they also have Canva for Work, which is great if you're a blog that is, wants to be consistent, which should be everybody. So in Canva for Work, you can actually like add your logo and add your font, add all your colors. You can add in some fonts that are your custom fonts that aren't in the app for everybody to use. I think you can add like 2 or 3 fonts in there. So you make your own little brand kit with all your official colors and official fonts and your logos. And then those stay in the app, and you can use those on any design. So you don't have to like reload them every time. And then by default, your brand colors come up.
And that is a tool that we've used quite a bit, particularly with our events, to be able to do it between our team members as well was quite useful.
Yeah, it's great to be able to share designs.
Yeah,
and you can create templates and share the templates with other teammates.
Yeah, I think that's something that was really missing a few years ago. You had to create everything from scratch every time, and that was really tough. Okay, so we've got Adobe Spark.
And if you make a mistake, if you have a typo, which happens, sometimes you have a typo in it, you make the whole design and you finish it, and then you can't edit the design. That's the big benefit of Adobe and Canva, in Spark and Canva. You can go back in and edit that same design. It makes I won't use something for, like, if you were doing event marketing and then something changed, you need to change one thing. If you had to redo the whole piece of art, that's horrible.
It is horrible. Yeah.
That's just time consuming.
So we've got Canva and Adobe Spark. Any other?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure you've got plenty.
Like little fun apps. There's an app called Ripple that I like that makes really fun animations. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've tried that one before.
No, I haven't. Tell us a little more.
That actually, Spark does some of the things. Ripple is a paid app, so if I call it like a premier app because it is one that's more expensive. You do have to pay for it to take their logo off it, which I don't like to use anything with like a brand's logo. Like, you know what I mean? Like in your blog stuff. I don't think it's very professional to have like the logo. So I paid for the app, and you can make really cool animations that have like text. They have a lot of different templates, and you can add music in there and do all kinds of fun things to make like a fun graphic. You can put your own photos in. It could be text only. There's a lot of different things that you can do in it that are fun. And that's just like, the ones that are like the little fun gravy kind where you've done your basic, like your basic blog graphic, but then when you want to do animated ones, those are fun to do. And then like if you post it on Instagram and then go back and embed it into your post, or you can tweet them. You could do it. You can post them anywhere on social, but you can also download them and upload them into your blog post.
Okay, so it's going to be useful within the blog post, but also promoting it as well.
Yeah,
Because anything
promoting
that
it.
moves really does get a little bit more traction. I
It
found even
does,
on Twitter, anything that moves,
especially.
yeah,
Yeah,
works well.
especially on Twitter. Giphy is another great one. I love Giphy. Do you use Giphy?
Only kind of for fun, finding other people's gifts and sharing them, but not
Yeah.
creating them. I didn't realize you can create them in there.
You can actually make GIFs in
Wow.
Giphy. I have to say, I pretty much just go in and look for stuff too because there's such great stuff in there. But those are really fun. GIFs are great in blog posts because they don't slow your page time at all. Because they're fast, they don't take up as much of the time that like a regular video or a photo. So you can actually embed GIFs into your blog post. Have you done that before?
I've done it a couple of times, and usually it's to do something a bit humorous, just to break things
Yeah.
up and give people a
Yeah.
giggle. I find that can work quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great for social sharing as well. Like when you have your blog, Twitter especially is great to have like the animations on there. And you can make your own, but I usually take the ones that are in there. But if you were doing a tutorial blog post, you could make a little GIF showing the steps on how to do something.
Creating great content and building your audience. This is Pro Blogger.
Excellent. So we've got Spark, Canva, Ripple, and Giphy so far.
Yes, and then Sketch is one that I like to use.
Yeah.
Do you use that one?
I've
That's an
used
app.
I've used the desktop version.
Yeah.
I think it's Sketch that I use anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to use that one to do screenshots on my phone when I'm writing tutorials that have to do with anything mobile. So then I can do the little arrows and, all the little things. Like if there's something new that happens on a social platform and you want to show, I like to just do the arrows and stuff. Because if you show a screenshot, I think people don't necessarily know what it is you're trying to highlight. So you try to make it as easy as you can for people. So I love to use that on my phone I really go back and forth between my phone and my desktop a lot. I also I have an iPad Pro, and I've been experimenting a little bit with using Adobe Draw to do some hand lettering, but I'm not like super proficient at it yet. But it's really fun to like add onto a graphic just to do like a signature or something.
Okay. Excellent. So that you use with the pen on
Yeah, I have
the Pro?
the Apple Pencil.
Okay. So I use Sketch on the desktop as my main screenshot tool.
You do? I don't even know it did that.
Yeah, so you can have that installed on your computer, and instead of just using the
Cool.
Apple screenshot, you can do your screenshots in that, and then it allows you to add in arrows and all of the same things that you'd be doing on your phone, but on your desktop as well. And as far as I know, it's a free tool too.
Cool. I'll check that one out because I haven't done that on desktop, and I like to do that too. I'm always switching around to find like the easiest one to do screenshots because when you do it on your Mac, it just saves it to your desktop and then you have to put it in another program. So it's like lots of steps.
Yeah. Yeah. There is another one that I use, I can't remember what it's called, to do a whole website. So if I want to do a screenshot of a whole website from top to bottom and it's not all on the one screen, it will kind of scan that whole site. But it kind of gets a little bit buggy because hello bars and things like that tend to get captured numerous times across the screen, which is a bit of a pain.
Yeah. It shows you how many pop-ups you have on your site.
Yeah. So it's getting less useful. Great.
Yeah.
Any other visual tools?
Well, one of the things I was going to say with like the multitude of tools that are out there is I think it's really important to pick one and try it for a while instead of constantly jumping around to a bunch of different ones, because I feel like it gives you more consistency in your brand and your graphics. If you switch around a lot, it's hard to get the same exact fonts, unless of course you're like a Photoshop user where then you're always using your same fonts. But also you could take classes on Skillshare. Have you done any Skillshare stuff, Darren?
No, I've seen them quite a bit, but
yeah. It's really reasonable. It's like $10 a month and you can take unlimited classes. So if you did want to like bump up your blog, if you're going to be a blogger and you're in it for the long haul, and I always tell myself I'm going to get better at it, but they do have classes for Photoshop. So you could learn how to use those. Or, YouTube is great for tutorials for all the design programs. People have made really great tutorials for them. So if you're somebody who feels stuck and you're not sure, like, you feel like they might be too complicated for you, definitely like check out YouTube and blog posts to find like how-tos on how to do different design things, and try one and give it a good try before you switch to something else. Because I feel like switching, like, it's like social platforms, like, do you want to use Sprout Social or Hootsuite or Buffer? It's kind of personal preference. It's kind of like it's like going to a doctor. You choose the one that you feel best with, that gives you the best advice. I feel like they're all a little bit personal. Like some people like more choices. I feel like too many choices gives you like design atrophy, and then you can't make any decisions. And you definitely want to get to the proficiency stage so you can stop using the templates. The templates in all of them are great when you start out, but you really need to like get proficient so you can make your own templates so your designs look different.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is one of the questions we got in the Facebook group from one of our members, is that people love the idea of the graphic overlays, but they're being used so much. How do you create them so that they're different? And that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, is how can you add a little uniqueness into that, apart from, learning the tools a little bit better? Is there something that you can give us some tips on with that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, definitely the thing is it's good to have those at the beginning so you can learn how the tool works and you can get ideas and you can play with them, because Canva and Adobe Spark both have templates. But then once you're comfortable using the buttons and everything, you definitely want to step away from that. And instead of taking a templated design, just start your own design. And then actually just, think about really what your blog post is about, and what you want to create like your own brand. If you don't already have one, a brand design, like you want to have visual style guide for your brand. So you have your font and your colors and even a style of photos. Like your brand should kind of have a personality. So you might have like always humorous, funny photos, or maybe serious photos. I write about social media, you write about blogging. So, maybe they're going to have like computers or people working, but you don't want them to be too stock photo-ish, but just of the same theme, because eventually what you want is for people to see your images and to know that it's yours. I have people that see my stuff on Twitter or on Facebook and they say, "Oh, I knew this was yours because I saw your graphic and I loved it and I knew that it would lead to a great blog post." And they're and like they tie that together, like they tie seeing a graphic on Twitter with knowing it's going to go to my blog. And that's where that's why it's so important. If you don't have that, they're going to click on somebody else's great image on Twitter, because tweets don't last very long. A tweet lasts like 20 minutes, I think, from the time you hit send or it's published. After 20 minutes, it's kind of dead in the water unless somebody goes and says, "Oh, I wonder if Darren's published anything lately," and they click over to your profile and they scroll down. But I think most people look at their news feed or lists. So it's important to have really eye-catching images that do look the same. So you want to create a visual style guide. I do have a blog post about that on my blog, but the things that you want to come up with are your brand colors. So you want like a main one or two colors, maybe one more accent color. You want a main font and maybe one accent font. So maybe you might have one that's a little bit more decorative and one that's a little bit, smaller for like the subheader. And then you would have your logo that you would use the same every time. And then you just want to remix that into different variations, but keeping it in the same family. So it's not as hard as it seems. The more consistent you are, the easier it gets. And then, you build the brand and when you go in, you're going to use the same blue, you're going to use this font, and you start seeing what things work well together. And then you think, okay, well, this one is a lighter background, so this needs a darker color over it. So play with the templates to get a feel for what designs look balanced and, like you can create something that's visually the same style as one of the templates, but change all of it to match your brand. So it's not like the circle with it doesn't look exactly like the template, but you could say, oh, well, they used like a little shape in the background. And then, you can copy the elements of it and then tweak it to match your brand. And once you start once you start doing that, you'll get more comfortable with it.
Yeah, I find the templates are sometimes good starting places as well, and you can, change it from a rectangle to a circle, or to, you change the shapes or change the fonts from what they've got there, so you can kind of use them as a stepping stone towards learning how to use the tool and making them completely unique. So, yeah,
Right.
that's
It's not
great.
it's not as hard as it seems. Just try to practice with the templates and then wean yourself off the templates and create your own designs based on your own brand. It's really important if you guys are listening to this. I know you want to be pro bloggers too. So take the time to get to figure out your visual brand, and then it's not a decision you have to make anymore. You always just know these are the fonts and these are the colors. And another tool, speaking of colors, is if you need to create a brand new brand, there's Adobe Color. It used to be they bought it. It used to be like Color with a K, but in Adobe they have a tool where you can make different color palettes. And I love that, because what I did for my blog makeover, like 2 blog makeovers ago, was I had this picture that I absolutely loved. It was like the inspiration for my whole design. And I put this into the tool and it gave me like a color palette based on that. So it actually picks the colors out. And then even going one step further, it gives you like different color. You can be like all coordinated. You can have opposite colors, tertiary colors. Like it gives you a whole bunch of different brand palettes.
Okay, so it's going to give you a collection of colors that are going to work together.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent.
So you can pick your main color, and then you can pick like, and it'll give you different, it gave me combinations that I wouldn't necessarily have thought of. And then you can just save those, and you get the hex codes and you save them, and then you always have it. So it's not, you can figure it out. It's not that hard, but you definitely do want to have a visual style that includes your color. And then another tool that I like, it's a Chrome extension called the eyedropper tool. I like that because if you have your brand colors, but you're making something that has like this photo has a certain color in it, you can use the little eyedropper tool, and then it grabs the color out of the photo. So you can match the photo exactly, which Photoshop has that built in, but the other tools don't have that.
Yeah, and to be able to do that from your browser makes a lot of sense. I'm keeping a list of all these, so anyone who is listening along and wanting to find all these tools, I will link to them all in the show notes today.
Cool.
How to build and monetize your blog. This is Pro Blogger.
One of the questions I've had a number of times over in the Facebook group is around images, and I know a lot of these tools have stock photos in them. Adobe Spark does, Canva does. Do you have any other image stock photography sites that you love and that you recommend?
Yes, I have one I found. It's amazing. It's called LibreStock. It's LIBRE stock.com. And they actually, when you do a search in there, it searches like 43 other photo sites. So just using this one free photo, and everything is free on this site, searching this one free site takes you to like all the other free sites. And the images are really good. The one that I like the best out of all the ones that it searches is Unsplash. It has really gorgeous photos on there, but I usually start with LibreStock just because it searches Unsplash and 42 other ones. So it's kind of like, and on all of them you can legally use. You don't need to worry about, when you click on them, it does show you what the other site that it comes from, and then you have to click through one more thing. So like if it's from Pexels or something, you click through and it takes you to that site, and then usually you just download them, or they may have questions or something on there, but all of them are free, and it just gives you a huge variety.
Wow, I'm going to be checking that one out. I use Unsplash a lot as well. In fact, I think anytime I open a new tab on Chrome, it opens up a photo for me in Unsplash, which I like as well.
There's beautiful photos on there, really beautiful.
The only problem I have with all these free ones is that you do see the same image a lot on blogs.
Yeah.
And so you've got to kind of dig in a little bit and find something that maybe hasn't been used as much.
It's true. But that's the nice thing about Unsplash and LibreStock. I think you'll find things that aren't the same that you see on they're not traditional stock photos. Like I used to use big stock photos a lot, but those are the ones that you do, they're like the more typical quote unquote stock photos. But Unsplash I like because they're different, but it makes it harder. It's harder when you have like a subject like social media or business or entrepreneurship, because there's a lot more nature photos and
Yeah.
things like that.
Oh, I find
So
I'm always looking for photos of photographers because they do really well for us. But there's only so many photos of cameras and photographers on these sites, and
yeah,
so
it's true. I
anytime
think you'll find some good ones on LibreStock actually,
yeah, I'm going to
because I
be
have
heading there.
searched for photographers for photos on there. And then my favorite paid one, it's a pretty expensive one, but I love it. It's Stocksy.com.
Stocksy.
Stocksy. So if you have a project that you want like a really stellar photo, Stocksy has beautiful photos, and they're very like not stock photo-ish. They're like lifestyle kind of photos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Those are my favorite ones.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say even any other ones, because when you can go onto LibreStock and get all the other ones. But that being said, I do search a lot, like right in Adobe Spark and Canva, because I know that you can use all of those legally. I'm sure you probably had other podcasts where you talked about legally using photos, right?
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about using other people's content, and I guess the other option that some people go for, and I'd love to hear your opinion on it, is sites like Flickr or 500 Pixels, where they've got Creative Commons photos that you can either embed or use as well. Do you have any thoughts on those sites?
Well, the embedded, I looked up actually both of those, 500 Pixels and Flickr, and they both have embeddable images. And if you use the embeddable images, then you do have permission to use the photos no matter what. So that's really good because it does the photo attribution right when you embed it. So you're 100% set. I used to get tons of photos from Flickr, but my fear was that you can go and change the settings on photos and change the Creative Commons license. So I was afraid that if I used a photo and then a year later they changed the license on it, you could get hit for that.
Yeah, and this is something I kind of asked the question with an opinion as well, and that is exactly what you've said. I actually had a lawyer approach me recently asking me for payment for a photo that I embedded on the site, 2004, I think it was. It was a Creative Commons licensed photo at the time, and then they changed it. And I was able to go back and show them using the Internet Archive that it used to be a Creative Commons image.
Sneaky. That's a good sneaky trick, Darren.
Well, thank goodness. It saved me 10 grand. So,
yeah, right?
Yeah, so there is some risk associated with that. But if you use the embed, it should be okay because they don't allow you, at least on Flickr, they don't allow you to embed unless the photographer gives you permission to use the photo. I think that's the case. But
it said that. And then also if they changed it, I'm guessing then the embed would just have like an error image it or something.
And that's the other risk, is that you end up with posts with broken images in them because the photographer takes them off and you end up with this ugly grey thing saying this image is no longer available, which doesn't look too professional. So,
yeah, it's tricky. And that's the thing that people really need to think about, though. Like people say, well, I can't afford a photo. And I always say, like, can you afford the $10,000 if you get busted for taking somebody's photo from Google? No. And the other thing that can happen, which I mentioned briefly, is you can do a takedown notice with Google, and Google will you get the black mark on your blog and you get zero traffic or referral for that forever. Because I actually reported someone because they took like all this content from one of my blog posts and they put it into an infographic and they didn't credit me for it, which even when they credit on an infographic, it's just your name on there. Like it's not actually like a link back or anything. And the blog post their infographic went viral on Pinterest. And I said, you took this and you didn't ask permission, because it was kind of like this secret formula that I had created for like how to do well on Google Plus. And so they took it and I was like, you can't just do that. And they didn't want to change it because it was viral. So I reported it to Google and they get nothing for that now.
Wow. So you got to be careful. You got to
especially
give
on
good
my
credit.
blog. Yeah, but it's just, we're the same way with our writing. We don't want people to steal our written word. And photographers, I think, really get, people really just steal images and they don't think twice about it. They just take them and they think, oh, I Googled it and it came up and, I was looking for this and, I just wanted to use it. It's not okay if it's somebody else's image. Even if it's on the internet, it's not okay.
Yeah. And there's more and more legal firms now targeting use of image in this way. And they're approaching photographers and saying, we've found people using your images. So they're actually doing the legwork before they even talk to the photographer because they know it's easy money. So just be really, really careful on that front. One of the challenges I know many bloggers face is that they can get overwhelmed in terms of the organization of all these visual images that they're creating and keeping track of them. You mentioned as we were preparing this interview that you might have some tools in helping on that side of things as well.
I have one really great one that I love so much, and it's Trello. Have you used Trello yet?
We've used it a little bit, and then we started using Slack, and it kind of took over some of what we were doing as a team. But I do know we've got some readers who just use Trello for themselves and not even with a team. So talk to us about how you use it.
I use it for myself, and I've used it on a team. So the difference, Slack is great for communication, but sometimes it's hard to find stuff from an old conversation. That's the problem with Slack. And you can actually integrate Slack and Trello together. But Trello is the organizational tool. So I look at Slack as the communication and Trello is the organization. So they set it up and it's like they set up to be like virtual Post-it notes. So you could like save a whole bunch of things and you can create lists in there and you can actually add the photos in there. So what I like to do is create an editorial calendar right on a Trello board. And then you can keep all the pieces for a blog post on one little card. So in that one card, you can create a little checklist for each blog post. So, you like on my little blog post checklist, I have like blog post title because I like to check it, to see how it does on like the co-schedule headliner analysis thing. And then you have like the SEO for the post and is the post written and do you have the graphics and do you have so you can do a little checklist for all the pieces. So if you're working with a team and you have like one person editing, one person's doing the graphics, there's actually the checklist that can really be checked off on there. And everybody on your team can be on the cards and you can actually have conversations in there. And then if you want to, you can actually share the link to the Trello card in your Slack channel. So you can say like, I finished doing, all the parts for the checklist on here, and you can put it into the Slack channel saying like it's ready for editing now or it's ready for graphics now. So you don't have more than one person working in the same blog post. But even for me, like even for one blogger, it actually helps a lot. And what I like is that you can embed all the images in there. So if I get my images and I have them, but I'm not going to make my graphics, I can just load the raw images in there. And then I can, make the graphics and put the finished graphics in there and then, work on the blog post later. Because, blog posts, you can have a formula, but sometimes you work in different order. Like sometimes I come up with the title first. And then I write the blog post. And then sometimes I'm writing the blog post and I'm not exactly sure of the title, so there's we work in a different order, but then this way, even really experienced bloggers, you can forget a piece. Like you're not going to forget them on purpose, but you can forget something, but it's great for working on a team as well. But I like it mostly for the graphics because you can load all the pieces and you can load all your social graphics in there too. So if you have a blog that you don't have, we didn't get to the other tool. We'll have to share that one too.
Okay.
We almost forgot. You almost made me forget one, Darren. Okay, but we're skipping on Trello still. So when you're in Trello, you can create all your social graphics. Like say you made the perfect size tweet and you made a great Pinterest graphic, you can put those into Trello. And then when you're done with a post, you put them like over in a column that's just all the finished blog posts. And say 2 weeks later, you want to share that blog post again, you can go back in there and get your graphics out again.
That's great because I'm always looking for old stuff and then I have to search Twitter to find that graphic that I've already shared and it gets so
or
messy.
You go in Canva and you have like 3 years worth of I have so many graphics in there. I'm like scrolling forever. So this way you create it once and you put it on that one Trello card and it keeps all the pieces together. So, and you can also, it integrates with your iPad, your desktop, and your phone. So if you did all your work on your desktop, but then somebody is asking you, hey, Darren, did you have a blog post about how to use Trello? And you're like, oh, yes, I do, by the way. You can tweet it to them and you can pull up the graphic on your phone from your Trello board.
That's great. And
Yeah.
speaking of posts about Trello, I just found yours online, and I will share it in the show notes because it's 10 ways Trello will make you a social media management pro. And I think you pretty much it's a go-to post. So I will link to that in the show notes as well.
You're listening to Pro Blogger.
Okay, and then the other tool,
Yes,
can I share the other one?
Okay,
so
we've teased long enough.
Yes, we're finally gonna deliver, people. So the one that I use on my blog post is it's a plugin called Social Warfare. And the website is Warfare Plugins. And what I love about this is it's in the back end, so it doesn't slow your blog post down at all. So if you just have an image at the top, if you're like super old school and you just have the one horizontal image at the top, you need to get up to date into 2017. So when people hit the Pinterest button, there's a big tall graphic. But you don't want an 800 by 1200 graphic on your blog post. Then when they hit the Pinterest pin it button, the big image pulls up because it's in the back end. So in there you add two separate graphics. You add one that's a horizontal and one that's a vertical for Pinterest. So the horizontal one is like sized it works for LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And then when you have all your open graph stuff set up, everything goes perfectly. And it also lets you do custom text for the Twitter, for the tweet, so you could add hashtags and stuff in there if you wanted, and then a separate Pinterest description because they're all a little bit different. If you have like a Pinterest description, you would have like more keywords, more conversational tone. You wouldn't just have the title of the blog post. You would say like, I can't believe how many great things you can do with Trello. Check out this blog post and learn how you can be a social media pro. Like you would want to put something else. So it makes it easy to customize it. It's very similar to using Yoast in the back end of your blog post where you fill out a couple extra fields. And then it also builds the ability to do the custom click to tweets right in your blog post. It used to be that you'd have to go out to the click to tweet site and do this code or whatever. So it's built right in. And I love that just because the Pinterest graphic for me is the money. My blog gets, organic traffic number one and Pinterest traffic number two.
Right. So just to recap on this one, it allows you, as you're writing your blog post, to add some extra images and text so that when people hit that share button, an appropriate image is shown, an appropriate text is shown alongside that if it's a tweet, for example. Is that a good summary? Yeah.
That is a good summary. Yep. And it doesn't slow your website down, which is important, which is what the reason that some blogs don't want to put a lot of images is because they feel like it's going to slow their site down. So this keeps them in the back end. And it takes a little bit, it's extra steps to put the graphics in there. But if you're going to the trouble of writing your great blog content, you definitely want it to have optimal sharing when it's someone else sharing it. You share them initially, but then you need to think about when people are coming back to your blog post.
Sure. So this is a $29 per year product. Just looking at their website now, that allows you to use it on one of your websites, and they've got other packages if you've got more than one website. So it is a paid one, but definitely looking at the feature list, it's got some pretty cool stuff.
It's the only plugin that does this.
Yeah.
So to me, it's worth the money because the Pinterest traffic is awesome. And it's not just the web traffic because Pinterest actually, if Shopify did a study and it showed that people spent 2 times as much on Pinterest as they do on Facebook. So if like the average Facebook customer is worth $40 in sales, it's $80 in sales on Pinterest. So people are actually there really buying more. So if you're selling anything, courses, books, whatever way you're making money, Pinterest is a great place to be. So it's worth it to me.
That's great. So one more question that's just come in on Facebook from Max is around sizes of images. He's saying if you had to create, and he's actually kind of picking up on the fact that you need different size images for different social networks, what sizes are you preparing for each blog post?
Good question. Okay, so for every blog post, I do 800 by 1200, which would be my Pinterest, or 735 by 1102. Like it's the same ratio. It's like, I think it's 2:3 ratio. So I do a really big one for Pinterest. If you don't want to put it on your blog post or use this plugin, you could just share it to Pinterest with the big image. Even if you don't have it on your blog post, you can still create the graphic to share on Pinterest. Twitter, I do 1000 by 500 because that one's 2:1. And then Facebook, off the top of my head, I'm totally blanking. That one is a rectangle, but you can also just use a 1:1 ratio on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. I think
which I tend to do just one. I use 1:1 just because I can use it on Instagram and Facebook.
Is it 1200 by 627? Is that right?
Yes, that could be. Yes, that is
it. I
it.
think that might be what we do with Facebook.
It's like one squidge bigger than just, yeah.
It's slightly weird. But even I've found if you only want to create two, then the Facebook and Twitter one, you can sometimes get away with that because they're not too far off. Yeah,
they're not too far off, but then you definitely need to do a long, tall one for Pinterest.
Yeah. Okay, so 800 by 1200 is your Pinterest, and then 1000 by 500 for Twitter. And we think Facebook is 1200 by 627.
Yeah, but like I said, I usually do 1:1 now just because Square does work.
Okay.
It works on Instagram and Facebook. For a while, it didn't work on Facebook.
Interesting.
And then they changed it.
Yeah, I'm going to try that for Facebook because that would take up a bit more vertical space on the page too.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing.
And actually it works on Twitter as well, believe it or not. Square is pretty good for it's almost the most versatile. If I had to pick one shape, if I was only going to do one, I would probably do a 1:1 because it's not the worst on Pinterest either. It's second to the big long tall one. So if you did like an 800 by 800, it would be pretty good everywhere. But I like to do that. Take up as much as I can on Pinterest.
Yeah, of course. Of course. All right, I think we need to do another Pinterest episode at some point because I did have a few other questions on that. But I think we've covered enough today, unless you've got any last tools that we didn't squeeze into the episode so far.
The social warfare was the one that we were waiting. But yeah, I'd love to come back and talk about Pinterest because I love Pinterest.
We'll definitely put that on the to-do list for sometime in the coming months. Thanks so much, Peg. Where can our listeners find more about you?
I'm Peg Fitzpatrick everywhere. So you can find me on my website at pegfitzpatrick.com or any social media. I'm pretty much there. Excellent. So come and say hi.
And we will link across to Peg's blog as well as some of the posts that I've referred to during the episode as well. So thanks so much, Peg. Hopefully that you've stimulated some great visual content for our listeners' blogs, and we'll chat again soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that.
This is ProBlogger.
Wow, a lot of information there. As I mentioned at the top of the show, you can head over to our show notes today to get a transcript of everything we just covered, as well as all the links to the 15 tools that we mentioned, as well as some of those posts that we mentioned. There's a great post I link there on Peg's blog on creating a visual style guide, which is really worth having a look at. Also, she's got a great post on how to use Trello, 10 different ways to use Trello as a blogger. I'll also list there on the show notes some further listening if you did miss one of those earlier episodes in this series on creating great written content, on creating video content, and creating live videos as well as one on embeddable content. So they're all listed over there on the show notes. Head over to problogger.com/podcast/191. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back with you next week with episode 192.
You've been listening to ProBlogger. If you'd like to comment on any of today's topics or subscribe to the series, find us at problogger.com/podcast. Tweet us at ProBlogger. Find us at facebook.com/ProBlogger or search ProBlogger on iTunes.
This episode of the ProBlogger podcast was edited by the team at Podcast Motor, who offer a great range of services, including helping you to set up and launch your podcast, as well as